I am so conservative.
Rationalize in my head. These are things I read in
And
the
I'm going to talk about Willow Creek.
Okay.
Willow Creek, a few years back, had invited...
remembered at the time when Will Rogers said, I don't belong to any organized religion. I'm a Baptist.
Yeah.
I am so conservative. If you didn't jump to conclusions, you might not get any exercise. I am so conservative.
And welcome to the Unknown Webcast. This is just a bit of a trigger warning for those who believe words are more injurious than sticks and stones. I really am so conservative, I can't turn left even when I'm driving. In addition to giving trigger warnings to our viewers, Ron Hensel and I both drink coffee for your protection. This week, a friend, Jay Jackson, lyricist and lead singer for the parody band ApologetiX, joins us to talk about apologetics without apology. My name is Don Vino. I'm president of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in Wonder Lake, Illinois, which produces the Unknown Webcast. And our senior researcher is Ron Hensel, who will introduce the sponsors of today's webcast. And here is Ronnie Baby.
Yeah, sorry about that, Don. I was messing around and I accidentally shared my
being abused. I have kids.
You're used to being abused. Yes, that's why I always know. All right. Well, greetings from sunny Florida, where the palm tree came out, saw its shadow, and now we have 12 more months of summer. Our sponsor for this edition of the Unknown Webcast is the Bible Buffet. It's not your father's worship experience, but it should be yours, the Bible Buffet. Our regular legal disclaimer, our guest on today's webcast, insert name here, that would be Jay Jackson, has no connection whatsoever to any of the satirical content of the Unknown Webcast, hereafter known as the Webcast, although we probably will not mention it again. This satirical content includes any and all commercials, end credits, puns, smart remarks, or anything else that might fall under the definition of satire. In the meantime, Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. bears no liability for or responsibility for anyone's opinions regarding this satirical content. Our regular announcements notice: the opinions expressed on this webcast are ours and should be yours too. If you enjoy it or if it really annoys you and you want to inflict it on someone else to ensure your continued access, please go to midwestoutreach.org, click the yellow donate button, and contribute as you feel led. And as you do, never fear, this webcast is Y2K compliant. And don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite video channels. And now our guest, Jay Jackson. Fake applause, yes. We just got this fake applause. I should probably, I go to click that. I go to click that because I want to show it. And
if you want less,
you're the second person we inflicted the fake applause on. Prior to that, it was fake applause, where I would go and I would claim we couldn't afford the real.
This is genuine fake applause. That's great.
This is the most genuine fake applause you can get.
That's exactly right.
It's also it was also free, which made it even better. So
just kind of a bit of an introduction. It's because we're going to accomplish a couple of things today. One of which is to respond to those who go, "Your satire is terrible. It isn't in the Bible. You've never used it." And so we want to answer that question.
We do.
And then demonstrate how it can be a teaching tool in a number of different ways. Jay, you're the founder, right? Who did you found ApologetiX with?
With three other guys, a guy named Carl, a guy named Jeff, and a guy named Andy. We formed the band. It didn't have a name back in like 1990 or so. We played our first concert out as ApologetiX in 92. We chose the name because we really like apologetics, a defense of the faith. We deliberately misspelled it to make it seem more rock and rolly. So we put a big X on the end. And we liked it because you could say the Apologetics and it sounded like an oldies band, or if you just said Apologetics, it sounded like a heavy metal band. And we like all that kind of music. So we liked it. And it's near the top of the alphabetical list, right after Abba. So
right after Abba.
Yeah. So I wanted to point out, this is interesting. The Victoria Emily Jones wrote an article called "Jesus the Satirist," and I think it's important for this kind of a discussion because those who go, satire is just wrong, you're being mean-spirited, and yet one of the things she points out is this. There are several different satiric techniques: parody, irony, invective, wit, caricature, hyperbole, and reductio ad absurdum. With the exception of parody, Jesus used all of them at one time or another. His humor was sometimes soft or teasing, sometimes biting, sometimes obvious, sometimes subtle, but it was always perfect in its timing and profoundly effective in delivering a point. Right?
Now, last week we had someone who used the word mocking.
Yes, because they don't understand the
Yeah.
nature of satire and why that it
Did
is.
I forget if we even responded to that person, but
We did not. I tend to not, because what I have found over the years, and we have found this even on our websites. We used to have a World's End Boutique,
World's End Theology Outlet, and then
World's
Coexist
End
Boutique.
Theology Outlet as part of our website, and we made up all these products: Benny Hinn's Umbrellas of Protection, Bill Gothard's, Benny Hinn's
Holy Ghost
Machine
Gun.
Gun, Bill Gothard's Umbrellas of Protection,
We still have that.
Shoes of something or other. And we had so many people complain. We said, well, maybe we should take it down. And then I went, why? It's very biblical. And so ApologetiX uses a very biblical process to communicate biblical truth through music.
Don't forget our Every Wind of Doctrine windbreakers.
That's right. Or every wind of
we have to bring those back someday. We have to get models for them though. The styles we showed back in the 90s are out of date now.
Yeah. So we're actually going to start with one. We have four selected. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but I want to do just a short one because I want to use this to introduce Jay's testimony. Now, Jay and I met some years back. He contacted us. He has been working with two other individuals I know, Bob Anderson and Ron Rhodes, and he called me and said, here's who we are. Here's what we do. If I send songs to you from time to time, could you kind of review them theologically to make sure that we're on target? And I have been blessed to be able to do that over the years. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to share a screen. I'm going to go here, make sure the sound is on, and click go.
One man with the sheep he was found. I said, one man saw a bush on the mount. He said, how come it's not burned to the ground? Yes, I need to see what's happening. One man in a place long ago. I said, one man who for short we'll call Mo. He went, yeah, he did find it, and he learned God's name for all time. He spelled his name with just Y-H-W-H. He spelled his name with just Y-H-W-H. Stay at Exodus 3. If you plan to read more, you can learn all about.
There we go.
Yeah.
Stop sharing.
Did you play that right off for YouTube or what?
That's on YouTube. Yeah. In fact, the links, the four that we're going to use are all in the description.
Through your speakers, right?
To their website.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I'm going to put that on my playlist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you.
Starting off with that, we started off with that for a particular reason, and that is your coming to the faith. Give us kind of the discussion we had just before we started.
Sure.
Where were you at? How did you get involved with apologetics? How did you come to the faith?
Well, I was born and raised Roman Catholic, went to 12 years of Catholic school, was a choir boy, a cantor, on the folk mass, all that stuff. So I had a religious background. My great aunt was a nun, but I didn't know exactly what I believed by the time I was in college. And while I was a senior in college, two events happened. One, I was a reporter, and they assigned me to go cover a guy named Josh McDowell, who I'm sure you've heard of, the famous apologist. I'd never heard of him. And he was talking about evidence for the resurrection. And I'd never heard things presented by an apologist before. And it really fascinated me. It didn't convert me, but it made me think, oh, there are well thought out answers here. And another event that happened that same year was I started dating a girl who was studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses. It was like something out of in the movie when you see when the couple that they'd kind of been, you know, they're going to come together for their first kiss. And it was Super Bowl Sunday, and you guys are out in Illinois. The Bears were playing the Patriots, and the Bears had just beaten the Patriots.
So now we know what era this is. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so now you know this is January '86. So you can see the faces are getting closer together. They're going to have their first kiss, and for some reason, and my parents had always raised us, you're just tolerant of whatever, you know, with the Protestants, Jewish people, Catholics, whatever. But for some reason, I said, by the way, what religion are you? And she said, Jehovah's Witness, just as I'm about to kiss her. And my heart just sank. Now, at the time, I thought they were like Amish. You know, I thought this was going to be like the movie Witness or something. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I had somebody in our office that I worked at. She was one I had respect for her, but I knew it was a hard life. I knew there was no Christmas, no birthdays.
That's tough.
You go door to door, and but I still kissed this girl. And in the course of the next few weeks, I found out she was not a baptized Jehovah's Witness, but she was studying with them. Her grandparents were witnesses, and she had said, so she'd let me read their books. And I went to the memorial service too, you know, and it kind of freaked me out because they passed the plate around, you know, with the elements, and nobody takes it because.
And you didn't put $10 in it?
No, I did not. And nobody thought they were worthy of doing it. They didn't believe they were part of 144,000. But I remember as I was looking through her books, I said, Kelly, I said, they say a lot of nasty things about Catholics and Protestants in here. And I said, they got pretty paintings, you know, but I said, what, this can't be true. And she said to me, she said, Jay, I don't want it to be true, but they're the only ones who've ever been able to give me answers. Prove to me they're wrong. And I remember thinking, I'd have to read the whole Bible to do that. But it stuck in my craw that I did not have answers for her. And another impactful thing when I was a kid was my parents had the Mormons come over, and we'd see their commercials. I thought they did really cool commercials, but my mom and dad had them come over. My parents had no intention of ever converting to the Church of Latter-day Saints, but they thought the temples were magnificent, and they knew they were going to show a slideshow and show us what was inside the temples. So my parents turned it into like an event, like a coffee cake party. They invited friends over for coffee. And I remember sitting there watching it and thinking, this is fascinating, because if he really found these golden plates, you know, if you know, Jesus came to the Americas, if all this stuff is really happening, we should become Mormons too. But if not, what are these people doing in our living room? I remember thinking that, but I didn't say anything. But those kind of things stuck in I also remember going to a world cultures class in high school, and they had all the different religions on the bulletin board. You know, Islam has this many, and Hinduism, and we learned about them. I learned about them in world religions class in college, and thinking, you know, it's possible that none of these is true, but there's no way they're all true because they contradict with each other. But so God was stirring the pot inside of me that then I become a born again Christian in early 1988, and I found a book. It's a Walter Martin book. It's now, of course, his magnum opus is Kingdom of the Cults. This was like a condensed version as Martin speaks out on the cults, and I just devoured it. It had a chapter on Jehovah's Witnesses, chapter on Mormons, a chapter on Christian Science, etc. And I just, every book I could find about that, I just devoured it, and it just I wanted to have answers. And when I found out there were answers, it was like, this is incredible, and that's what started it all out.
That's good.
Excellent. So that's an unusual. I mean, I was raised Catholic too. I don't think my parents would have ever invited Mormon missionaries into the house to give a presentation. Were your parents just like, okay, they wanted to see what the inside of the Mormon temple?
Yeah, they just wanted to see the inside. They were very they were devout Catholics. We never missed Sunday. Although my dad also he listened to R.C. Sproul. He used to do printing for R.C. Sproul. My dad had a printing company.
Wow.
We were from his printing company was in Latrobe. R.C. was in Ligonier. That's the next city over. my dad used to like to listen to Chuck Smith.
Okay.
And so he was always open to those sort of things. And as we got older, he had a real living faith with the Lord. I mean, he had a very simple faith. And then I found out he just died a few years ago, but I found out about 5 years before he died, I was talking to him, and he said, he says, when you were a little boy, I used to come into your room at night. I was the youngest kid. He would work. He'd come home for dinner, then he'd go back to work. He said, I come in and you'd be asleep. And he says, I'd pray. I'd say, Lord, he's yours. Well, he's yours anyway. He says, but I give him to you. He said, whatever you want him to be, you want him to be a minister, you want to be a priest, whatever you want him to be, you let me know and I'll help him. And here's my dad doing something like James Dobson would tell people to do, dedicate your kid, raise him. But God was prodding him to do that on his own. And it was really touching. It was really, really, really touching. One other story I'll tell you is my dad is not charismatic. Well, he might be now. He's on the other side of the he came to see me. And my parents saw us play a number of times, but I was singing at our church once. We did some parodies. And my dad said this at the end of the night. He says, he says, tonight, he says, when you were up there, he says, I heard a voice behind me. And this is my dad. He was already in his 80s by then. He was not senile. Okay. But he said, I heard a voice behind me saying, that's my son, John. And he says, I know I didn't say it. He says, I know your mother didn't say it. He says, and there was nobody behind us. He says, I know it was God. And like I said, my dad is not prone to getting revelations or anything like that, but he was a humble man. He loved the Lord. As I got older, I'd see him kneeling by the side of the bed in his underwear when I was old enough to be up later than he was. And I remember when I first got saved, getting into an argument with my parents because I'm talking about vain repetition, Jesus, and my mom said, well, that's good for you because you have a good imagination, but the rest of us, we need these set prayers. And my dad, who knows better than to get into an argument with his wife, my dad said, no, he's right. He's right. And that told me a lot about what my dad was praying. And as the years got older, before like Thanksgiving and stuff, he'd pray and he'd say, and Jesus, we thank you for this. And he knew what he was doing. And so I didn't have any doubts about where he was going whenever he passed 3 years ago. So.
Wow.
Well, that's a great story. That's
a
great history. Yeah. And I am really blessed to have gotten to know you, consider you a friend, and love your ministry. One of the questions that came in, we'll have to go to these from time to time, even though we have great fun doing them. What is the favorite song you've written, if you have one?
Oh, gosh, it's usually whatever the most recent one is. Because, it's whatever new one you're working on. They're all like your
children, sort of.
Yeah, they ask you what and technically I haven't written any. Well, the songs I've written, ApologetiX has never done. They're original, but parodies. I'll tell you what. There's been a few over the years that whenever they have an impact, where people come back and they say, like we did a parody of a song by Papa Roach, probably not a big one with you guys, but we rewrote it, and they've had a couple different people who told us God used it to bring them salvation through it. One guy was Jewish. I mean, and even went and made a confession to his mother and was wearing a cross while he's doing it. Another one was this girl who grew up in a Christian home where her dad was a pastor. Her mom was a church lady, the way she said it, and she became a Christian. We did a concert down there with it. So that's important to me. But it's funny. I saw an interview with Eddie Murphy once on some late show, and he said, on my tombstone, it's just going to say donkey because everybody knows him from Donkey and Shrek. And I wrote this song years ago, a parody of the Beach Boys' Barbara Ann, originally done by the Regents. And it's called Ba Were Lambs. It's very simple. Kids like it. Okay. And you work real hard on these theological treatises with all these very intricate things. But so many times people say, oh, I love that song, Ba Were Lamb. And I told my wife, that's what's going to be on my tombstone. It's just going to say Ba Were Lambs, like donkey. But
now, when you talk about people coming to know the Lord through your music, and I'm looking at your Wikipedia page and the songs and listening to the lyrics. I mean, the songs are extremely well produced. They sound great. I mean, I thought you were the guy from the Village People when I heard your voice, I hesitate to call them parodies because they're also aren't they also teaching songs and
They are. That's
evangelistic
important.
songs? So I mean, if you ever get sued, you pull out the word parody because copyright law covers that, right?
Well, technically, a parody is in the original definition of a parody. A parody is a song sung alongside another. Okay, para, like paramilitary, para church.
Melody parody. Okay.
Parody. So when the Supreme Court did the ruling regarding fair use in parodies in '94, involving Two Live Crew, it was a very famous court case that opened up the door. It expanded the use of fair use, which you guys are familiar with that term. You use it as a disclaimer at the beginning of your thing. Even the Supreme Court cited that in their thing, that a simple definition of a parody is a song sung alongside another. But yes, we do use it for teaching, which is good for fair use too, because that's fair use is also used in teaching. But our mission statement is simply, we say to reach the lost and to teach the rest. And when I started writing these parodies, I started writing them to teach myself. I used to be in rock bands, bar bands, garage bands before I got saved. And then I set that all aside and I really was content to be all done with it. And over the course of the next year, God did some things that really surprised me and pointed me back in that direction. So I started picking up the guitar again. I'd always been a singer, but I had just been learning the guitar before I got saved. And then I couldn't play I couldn't sing the old words, but I've been writing parodies ever since I was a little kid. I just never thought of it as my gift. But I mean, long before I ever heard of Weird Al, I was influenced by the same things he was: Mad Magazine, Cracked Magazine, the old comedy records. And so I started doing that. And also, I've always loved teaching through music. You guys remember, how did we all learn our ABCs? Nobody learned from by rote, right? It's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, or How About Black Sheep? It was Mozart before that. There was a thing called multiplication rock, schoolhouse rock, grammar rock when I was in the 70s. We learned the conjunctions. We learned the times tables.
Conjunction.
Exactly. So music's an excellent teacher. I did an experiment a number of years ago where I memorized John 14 by rote, and then I memorized John 15 by putting music to it for myself. And I'll tell you which one stuck with me easier, the one from John 15, because music is great. What does Moses say, right? I'm going to teach you a song and you're going to remember all the stuff God has done, right? Moses is teaching through song back in the Old Testament.
Yeah. So parody does, most people, when I hear parody, I think of something that makes fun of something else or is a takeoff, but really it's the word itself means, in its simplest meaning, is what you just described. And so parody doesn't necessarily mean that. And these songs, I kind of wish I had learned about them sooner than I had.
Well, it's not too late, Ron.
No,
it's not too late. No.
Ron.
And another thing
about memorization, we want to just do a short clip of this one. It's kind of fun.
Okay.
Romans and 4 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, and Thessalonians to read, and then Paul, Timothy, and then Titus, Philemon, Hebrews. I will send to all Christians the letters I have written, in hopes that you'll read them for me. And then while I'm away, you'll find all every day, 'cause I've sent all my letters to you. All my letters I will send to you. All my letters spelling out the truth.
All my letters.
So I thought the song was going to be called Braggadocious, but no, it's All My Letters. Okay.
That was the name of the album.
Right, right.
Now, one thing I wanted to point out is, now we're not just copying somebody's melody and slapping words on it. Our words are designed to rhyme with the original. So in that sense, it is a parody because it's also not just a song sung alongside. So it's not just, A, B, C, D, have you any wool? It's it rhymes with what the original says, and there is an inherent humor in that to me. You say parodies are supposed to be. There is an inherent humor in the fact that you're turning a song on its head and making it sound like the original while saying something totally different. But to me, the essence of a good parody is it should sound like the original.
Yeah.
So, and we try and match syllable for syllable and as many rhymes as possible. I'm pretty anal retentive about that.
And I will tell everybody that is really difficult to do. Every year I used to do a tribute song at our middle school graduation where I would do song parodies, and I would put the names of the kids in the song. So the first year I did it, I did from the Sound of Music, I did My Favorite Things, and I had the names of the kids, and these are a few of my favorite things, to make it sound, to make it rhyme at the exact spots where the original rhymed with similar rhymes. That is very difficult.
Yeah, it is hard.
Which leads me to the next question that Rich Mannion had asked, which is, how does Jay come up with amazing lyrics he creates as quickly as he does?
Well, Rich,
is that a plant? Is Rich a plant?
Rich is our keyboardist, and he is watching. And Rich is a phenomenal musician. Rich, he sings, he plays keyboards, he can play all the instruments, and he can simulate them all on his keyboards and stuff. But we did a song last week. We did a parody of Barry Manilow. I Write the Song. It's called I Rewrite the Song. Now, it sounds so great, but when you sing it, it sounds a lot like I Write the Song. But I got the idea. And within 5 hours, it's like I had all the words. And then I told Rich, and Rich played all 40 pieces on all the instruments. The on the keyboards, everything from the drums to the orchestration to the oboes to the flutes, clarinets, all that stuff, piano, grand piano. And but as far as ideas, sometimes a song might take months, and sometimes a song can come out in just a few hours. I really feel it's the Lord's leading. I mean, when I was a kid, I got a Christmas present one year called Chip Away. And what it was these little plaster blocks, and you work with your little chisel, and inside there's a statue of a basketball player, baseball player, football player. It makes you feel like you're Michelangelo when really it's always been in there. Yeah. And what I feel like with these songs is, and we pray a lot about this stuff, you know what I mean? And I feel like God has them in there, and I just got to get it. I think even Michelangelo said that about the David statue. It was in there. He just had to get it out of there. And that's the same way with this. On one hand, it's humbling and I don't hear an audible voice. I'm not saying that. On one hand, it's humbling because you feel like, well, anything good here is from God. But on the other hand, it's encouraging because when you get halfway through a song, you're there, well, I know the rest of this has to be in here someplace.
Yeah.
It's funny. You have a Bethlehemian Rhapsody here, which I'm going to listen to as soon as I can. But this morning I was thinking about the Greek word for king. It's basileia, and I was thinking basileia, Figaro. Well, anyways, so I wonder what you do at that point in the song.
Well, ours is not actually. Some people would think that ours is about the birth of Jesus, but it's actually about David versus Goliath, since David was from Bethlehem, so he was Bethlehemian. So, okay. Although since then somebody else did a Christmas one, and they called it Bethlehemian Rhapsody also. But
so here's we're going to go from the sublime to the less sublime. One of the things that we frequently have to deal with here is groups that sort of select and pick, even within the church, doctrines that they like, doctrines they don't like, doctrines that they just sort of change along the way. There's a high proliferation of New Age in the evangelical church today. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I was just at the Paganicon 2023. And now, as we know, contemplative prayer is very popular in the church since the turn of the third millennium, especially. And Richard Foster says something in his writings that when you go into contemplative prayer, you have to really pray that God will protect you from an evil spirit affecting you. That's sort of interesting, because while I was there, one of the shamans is leading the shaman journeying, talks about calling out for a good spirit to protect you, your spirit guide to protect you while you're on this journey. And I went, how is this in the church exactly? So you're, though, committed to staying biblical in what you're doing to use it as a teaching tool. However, there are those who want to pick and choose, and we have a sponsor that addresses that.
You know, while you were talking, I was reading one of the questions that I want you to put up. So
And you got lost and forgot. It's your turn, Ron.
I know it's my turn. So we have some questions. Are you tired of hearing all about the difference between the milk of the word and the meat of the word? Are you wondering when your church is going to get around to serving the ice cream and cheesecake of the word? Does your pastor take the whole Bible thing way too seriously? Well, then you need to check out the Bible Buffet. It's not your father's worship experience. Everything at the Bible Buffet is prepared with your comfort and enjoyment in view. Everything there is gluten-free, trans-fat free, and truth claim free. And all of their dishes are piping hot and ready to eat. And even in this time of COVID, they're always open with Bible Buffet carry out. The regular Sunday specials are Aryan appetizer, Sibelian succotash, Galatian goulash, Gnostic nut salad, Pelagian pie, and Socinian salad. And don't forget that the Bible Buffet is a fully accredited ministry of the Church of Smorgasbordianism. The Bible Buffet, it's not your father's worship experience, but it should be yours. So if we can make a parody guy laugh, I think we've done our job. I can
Was
go
that
home.
Emmanuel Smorgasbord?
Yeah, that's right. Well, we did use a manual to write this, but anyways.
Oh, very good. Where's my drummer?
Yeah.
Somebody
You
asked-
met Weird Al Yankovic, right? We talked about that.
Yes, we have. We met him briefly. We spent the day with his drummer, John Bermuda Schwartz. He played on one of our CDs back in '99. Very, very nice guy. Spent the entire day with us. Just a great drummer, great guy. And we've kept in touch with him over the years from time to time. We'll send him CDs or he'll send us CDs. Super nice guy.
If Don and I had met Weird Al, we'd have been like Wayne and Garth. We are not worthy. We are not worthy. Well, I don't usually do this. Don usually does this, but I really like this question. Would you ever do an album that condenses a systematic theology and each song? I mean, if you really don't want to read, Berkhoff or Calvin, just get an ApologetiX album. I think that'll take you through the whole thing. I mean,
that's a great question. We have actually done albums with. We did one that's all the minor prophets. So we have a song for 12 songs, 12 minor prophets. It's called Minor League, and it has the 12 guys. It has autographed baseballs on the front by each of the prophets. But so we've done things like that. We're doing a rock opera, the entire life of Samson. There's more to him than Samson and Goliath, or Samson and Goliath.
Much more.
A lot more.
So I didn't even know about.
It's called Play It Again, Samson. It's coming out later this year. But I was influenced by things as a kid, by like Jesus Christ Superstar, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Godspell. Now I have issues with some of the things that are said in those things now, but at the time they put flesh on the bone for me, as far as like, oh, these were real people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All those things were written by people who were not believers, but they were saying it as they understood it. So we've done things like that. We have an album called Jesus Christ Morning Star, which is the life of Christ presented through rock music, or we like doing things like that. So systematic theology, I don't know, but we definitely have talked about docetic Gnosticism and things like that. We'll do songs about hypostatic union, things like that. Yeah, we'll throw the words in when we can too, because in fact we're going to do our 70th album later on this year, Lord willing, and it's called Septuagint, because we want people to learn what Septuagint means, and it's going to be all 70s songs. So it's the 70th album about the 70s.
It's interesting you raised Jesus Christ Superstar, because you're right. Even though it's written by unbelievers, they were asking some of the right questions. Jesus Christ Superstar, who do you really think you are? That's a great question.
Yeah,
it really is.
I think, unfortunately, too much of the church didn't rise to the occasion and go, we have the answer.
Yeah, that's true.
So David Michael asks this: what is the book of the Bible that you think gets overlooked or not talked about enough that should get a more in-depth look by others?
Gosh,
You need to do a song on Obadiah, I think.
we've done 2 songs about Obadiah, buddy.
Oh, well, hey, there you go.
We have
there-
Obadiah by the Beatles, and we have Obadiah parody Hold the Line by Toto.
I should have guessed Obadiah would have worked with Obadiah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that should have realized that.
A book, let's see, that doesn't get that gets overlooked. You know what? The books of Kings and the books of Chronicles, I really like them a lot, and we write about them quite. And First and Second Samuel. If you like the movie The Godfather or Godfather 2, you ought to read the ending of Second Samuel and the first part of First Kings, when you see how David takes care of business with his enemies, just like Michael Corleone. And I think the book of Jeremiah is another one that once you get a handle on who those kings are, there's a lot of incredible stuff in the book of Jeremiah. And so those are some that come to mind immediately, David, Michael.
So here's we're going to do another song because talking about prophets, major prophets, minor prophets, not non-prophets, but so
maybe turn your speakers up just a little, Don. Just a tad.
My speakers?
Are you playing it out of your speakers?
No, I'm playing.
Oh, I thought you were. Okay.
No, I'm not.
Then don't turn them up.
Oh, I forgot to do something, I think.
Oh, okay.
It just dawned on me that you're not hearing it. There it is. Okay, there's.
Yeah, I wasn't hearing it at all.
I'm sorry?
I wasn't hearing it at all.
Oh, there we go. Got it. Okay, that's what I forgot.
Elijah, don't start no fires. Elijah looked toward heaven. It got very bright. The fire fell sure enough, taking 50 guys' lives. I get a funny feeling I'm about to die, 'cause I know that Elijah's tried that twice. So I'm singing Elijah, Elijah, don't start no fire. Elijah,
There you go.
he's the one. He's the one. Light those soldiers away.
I can see Don listening to the
I love
Alabama
it. I
version of
absolutely
that.
love it. Who brought the fire down?
Thanks.
Let's take us back.
It does. It does. So Jerry Samandel says of one of them we just played that it's going to be the next worship song he'll introduce at church.
We try to have something. There are so many stories in the Bible. I'm serious that we want to talk about. I think we've got something for just about every book of the Bible, and so many from so many. But there's a zillion stories. There's some stories I'm not looking forward to doing one about Ananias and Sapphira, in Acts chapter 5.
Right.
But there are so many fascinating stories. You never run out of songs, and you never run out of stories. So.
Right. That's exactly right. Let's see. What else do we have? Jerry Samandel asks, were you ever influenced by Davy and Goliath episodes?
Well, Davy. Yes. Yes, I like those.
Maybe.
A few years ago, somebody got me them on DVD, and I was looking forward to playing for my kids, but the fidelity was so terrible you could barely hear them. But I like those. And I was a kid who didn't like stress too much, and Davy was always getting into trouble. So I was probably more like Goliath, his dog, like, don't even let me see what's going to happen next.
Right.
Yes, I was influenced by them, as a matter of fact, Jerry.
Okay. Oh gosh, here's a pretty controversial one I'm going to throw out there. And we've written on this, so I already know my answer, but Do you have opinion on The Chosen? We're watching it in small group, and while I'm enjoying the series as a whole, I'm a little torn by the fictional backstories.
Oh, that's a great question. I've only watched the first season and a half of it. I'm aware of the controversy. I've read some of the articles that Midwest Christian Outreach Incorporated, MCOI,
Real McCoy.
very good. I like that. Has put about them. So my favorite movie all time is Jesus of Nazareth. Okay, I mean that sounds like religious or whatever, but I tell that to somebody who wasn't religious.
Really?
Forrest Gump is my second favorite. My favorite is Jesus of Nazareth. I just love it. Okay, it's not the Jesus film, which is just the Bible. Okay, but I love it. But having grown up on, like I said, Godspell and Jesus Christ Superstar, The Chosen is so much closer to what's in the gospel than that I've enjoyed things I've seen about it. I'm going to watch everything with okay, what about this? And I don't know. Now they're up to the end of the third season. Okay, I intend to watch more of it. So I understand the concerns people have about it, and I think it's one of those things where you can use it for good, or you can focus on this. And as long as, to me, and I know people have widely different opinions about this, to me, if you're like, if I'm watching it with my family, which is what I'd be doing, is watching it with my family, I'd be saying, okay, that's not actually in the Bible. That is in the Bible. This, depending on what the situation is. And I think if people go into it with that attitude of, okay, we're watching this, but we're not using this as a substitute for the Bible. We're using it as a point.
Watch it critically. Like if you're reading a commentary, that you're not necessarily going to agree with everything the commentator says, but you're reading it critically and you're watching the series critically. I haven't seen any of it, so I'm just.
Well, Joy and I watched the first season. We didn't really watch any beyond that because I, like Don says, I am unhappy with kind of the backstory. Suddenly Peter's turned into a bar brawling spy for the Roman government against his friends, and I'm going.
That says a lot more about the person who wrote it than the.
It kind of does. Now, to be fair, Dallas Jenkins has said on more than one occasion, 95% of what you see on the screen he invented. It is not part of the biblical story. The Bible is just sort of a launching point to get the characters kind of in the first century. Now, having said that, what Jay's saying, I think, has some merit. If you're going to watch it critically with your family so you can explain it. Now, I did that with The Matrix.
Yeah.
I took my son, The Matrix came out, opening night. We went and watched it. We talked about, here's what they're teaching, here's how this works. I taught him about the New Age through The Matrix. And you're entertained in the meantime. So you got to be careful with that. Not everyone's geared for it.
Of course, your parents said, "Oh, Dad, can we just watch the movie?"
Yeah.
Now, I've enjoyed many of the things that I've seen. I tell you, even when I listened to Jesus Christ Superstar, which I have some major issues with, okay, now as a Christian, because that Jesus is confused about his identity, and Jesus Christ Superstar, he says things that are misquoted from the Bible, like he says, "Heal yourselves," like he's upset with them. There were still parts of it that was like, it helped me think, oh, this was a real person. This was a real, and these were real people following him, and so to me, there are parts when I've watched it where I've gotten teary-eyed, and not just because they're playing with my emotions. When I watch any movie, I'm saying to my wife, they want us to feel this way, or look, I just discovered this, but the director probably wanted me to discover this, whatever the movie is I'm watching. But there are parts where, look, when I was a little kid, when I'd watch Godspell or Jesus Christ Superstar, I was attracted to the person of Jesus. I would think, gosh, wouldn't it be cool to be one of his disciples? And whenever I became a born-again Christian and found out, oh, we really can be one, because I used to think, I could never be good enough for one. And that's a good attitude to have, because we never could be good enough for one. But when I found out, oh, he could still pick me. And when I see these apostles and I see they're regular people, it's just like, guys, we write songs, okay? The one you just heard, Elijah, that's from the perspective of the captain of the 50 men, the third captain who sent.
Right.
We don't know what that guy was saying, okay? I had to speculate. Now, I'm going to watch, as a person who likes apologetics with a CS, as in Lewis, C.S. Lewis, I listen. I'm going to try and write in a way that I'm not going to say something that contradicts what the Bible says,
Right.
like, but sometimes I have to use anachronisms. Like I might have Peter say, I looked at my watch or something. Like we all know that you have a watch, but it's like, let's think about this, this way. And it's a tightrope you got to walk. I understand.
An hourglass or sundial didn't fit in with the
yes,
flow of the
exactly.
lyrics. Yeah.
Yeah. James Nipper asks something I noticed you commented on your Facebook site. Should we call you Jay? Should we call you John? Or should we call you Mr. Jackson?
Well, you can call me right now.
Don't call me late for dinner.
But it doesn't have to call me Jackson. It's J with just the letter J. It stands for JJ. So
okay.
I didn't come up with that myself. It happened in college, and so people just would get lazy. They instead of John Jackson, it'd be JJ, and then they got so lazy they just call me Jay. Pretty soon, people are just going to say J. I don't know.
That's the way it works. Yeah.
Jake from Farm State. He kind of
Jake from State Farm.
Farm State. Jake from
I like
Farm
that.
State.
I like that. That's pretty good. Yeah.
And he liked your idea about doing a song Septuagint. Yeah.
He was paying attention when I said that before. Yes. We do intend to do a song.
Yeah.
Called Septuagint, and it will be on that album. You're at a sneak preview here. We usually don't give out that stuff in advance, but I won't tell you the song. But look for it to come, Lord willing, in the next few months.
So you heard it here
Music's already recorded.
This is where you heard it.
You heard it here first, folks.
How funny. Lots of questions. I'm kind of surfing through to see if there's someone else who want to pick up. Oh, Psalms. There we go. So when David makes a psalm that's sung to the tune of something like "Do Not Destroy," that is a parody too.
I have thought about that over the years because he has "To the Lilies," "Do Not Destroy," sung to the tune of "Death of a Son." There are a lot of songs that David in the Psalms that claim to be written to be sung to another melody. And you guys know, I'm sure, that in church history, now some people erroneously say that Luther and the Wesleys rewrote bar hymns, but that actually is a different word. That's not songs sung in a bar. It's like bar music, bar hymns. But other people like Fanny Crosby rewrote a lot of famous songs from the Booths from the Salvation Army. They rewrote songs. In the Middle Ages, the monks used to write things called contrafactums, which are a song against their rewrites of secular songs. Doing parodies actually goes back to times of ancient Greece. But as far as in the church, we have Greensleeves was a not very polite song when it was changed into What Child Is This? If you look into it, the Battle Hymn of the Republic was a secular song. The national anthem was a secular song. Amazing Grace, I'm sure you know, was a secular song first.
Well, was it "Be Still My Soul" or one of the others? It was like a classical, or 19th century symphonic piece from Sibelius or something. I forget.
Yeah, it could be. And some of these, like the national anthem, that's a drinking song. To Anacreon with Love, that was a British drinking song.
Yeah.
I mean, and like so I don't know about what David was doing with that, but I've often wondered as I look at that, because it says sung to the tune of. It reminds me of when I used to read Mad Magazine. It'd say sung to the tune of this.
Oh yeah. I love those. Instead of the Age of Aquarius, the
Smog of Los Angeles.
Right. I've got the lyrics.
One I was thinking of.
I've got the lyrics memorized to that, where the sun is blotted out of sight and both your eyes begin to burn. Okay, so you and I are on the same wavelength. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's the same book, the Mad Magazine book. That's
I used to eat those up.
Sing along with Mad. Yes.
Yeah.
So okay. So next question up is David Michael. Besides the Gospels, if you could go back into time, kind of like Superbook, and be there that day. Where in the Bible would you like to be that day?
You know what, David? I would rather go forward in time, and hopefully I'm there on that day. Well, I believe I will be in that day based on what the Scripture says. When I'm with the trees, the healing of the nations, and just on the other side. But as far as going back, gosh, I think it's one of those. Be careful what you wish for. I think I was born to be in this particular era, and a lot of that stuff, unless I just could watch from a protective bubble, you know what I mean, that I could watch Jesus and this stuff. But there's a lot of frightening stuff that happens in the Bible. The book of Acts would be cool, but if you go back in the book of Acts, a good chance you get the axe yourself. So
there were no good old days, even though there were some amazing days where God did amazing things, but you wouldn't really want to necessarily live through those times.
Yes, exactly.
Sure. I mean, crucifixion was a punishment that was so shocking. People did not talk about it in polite company. You didn't even mention it. It was that bad. And yet they did it in public to serve as an example to set. So we look at crucifixion. I don't think I've ever I think the Passion of the Christ was as close as we got. Some people said it was a little bit too gory. It was probably pretty accurate.
Probably pretty close. Yeah, probably pretty close.
Yeah.
Well, what if you're kind of struggling at some point with your faith and you kind of want to give up? What do we have for that?
All right.
Just a small town girl living in a Roman world. She took a midnight trip out of Bethlehem. Just a pretty boy, born to make the world rejoice. He took a midnight trip out of Bethlehem. King is in an okay mood till the wise men leak the news. For a while they can spare their lives if they run and run and run and run. The angels racing, coming down to pull them out. There's bad folks searching in the night.
Okay, we just pushed the buzzer on that. Simon's getting up and applauding now. Yeah, right. All the confetti is coming down here. That was really amazing. That was great.
Well, thank you. You know what's really funny with that song is I got the idea. It's called "Don't Stop Till Egypt," and I had just gotten the idea, and I was my kids were at different. Well, my kids are still at different ages, but at the time they were at such a different age that you couldn't read the same Bible with them all at the same time.
Yeah.
So I was reading with the one set of kids, and I got this idea. Oh, we could do "Don't Stop Till Egypt," and then I went with the next kid, and they had a much simpler Bible, and I went to open up for what the reading was that night, and the reading for that night was, because they were in a different part of the Bible, and it was "Go to Egypt." What does "Don't Stop" means? Go to Egypt. And it was like, I guess that's a confirmation. I guess we'll write this song, and that's all
right. Well, that was this is, how many of your songs have music videos like that to go with them?
Well, we're closing in on 800 parodies, and fans have done them for most of them.
Did you do that one? Or?
What's that?
Did you make that video? Or
No. Most of these are made by fans. We have a few that we've made, but
okay.
They make them themselves. And,
wow, that's very well produced.
Yeah, Yeah, they do some really nice work.
I thought, wow, you must have done some fundraising for that. Well, somebody did.
They
The
just
costumes and everything.
yeah, people do some really amazing jobs.
Huh. Great. Yeah.
All right. So one of the questions was, you're coming up on your 31st anniversary next Monday. What do you see in the future for apologetics?
Well, I tell people, I've been telling them this for years, that if this band were a car, it should have a bumper sticker that says "one day at a time." One of those "one day at a time" bumper stickers, because I don't know. I mean, I'd like to keep doing these, and we certainly have enough ideas. We have things mapped out for all this year, 4 more CDs. We usually put out 4 CDs a year, about 50 songs a year. But I don't know. It's like every single day. It's
Well, you really are a Beatles fan, because I don't remember any group since the Beatles that put out 50 songs a year.
Yeah, that's well. It helps when somebody else is writing the music, Ron.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's already been written. Yeah.
We just got to color in the lines, right?
There you
How
go.
funny is that?
Writing lyrics is not that easy. So you just happen
So
to
Katie
be very good at it.
J says songs with harmony like "Don't Stop Till Egypt," "Bah We're Lambs," etc. Do you do all of the harmony, or some of the other guys sing those parts?
It depends on the song. Sometimes we have the other. Sometimes we have the other guys do harmonies. Sometimes I do the harmonies. It depends. If we have the other guys, Rich Mannion, our keyboardist, does most of the harmonies as far as the ones that aren't me. Sometimes we have Tom Milnes, one of our guitarists, who's also a pastor. He'll do harmonies too. Sometimes we'll have. We're old enough now that our daughters are old enough that they sing on some of our songs. And if we need female harmonies, we bring them in for it too. I do a lot of harmonies. Rich has a great musical mind, and he's got a great range too. So if we have like some song that might have 7 harmonies on it, hey Rich, can you do this for me? Because I really don't want to. I want to concentrate on these lead vocals, and he'll do a wonderful job. And sometimes I'll do them if it's just a single harmony, then I can do that.
Now, are you also really good at impressions, like an impressionist like Rich Little or something? Because how do you modulate your voice to sound so much like the original singer? Or is there some electronic wizardry going on there? Or are you just really good at it,
Well, thank you. I think God gives us for whatever we're supposed to do. You know what I mean? And this, he gave me a ministry, a task that combines a lot of things that I like to do. I like humor. I've been writing parodies since I was a kid. I like to write. I love reading the Bible, and I like to sing. And when I was a kid, my thing was art. So I could draw, and people say, how can you draw like this? I'm thinking, I see it and I draw it. It goes through my fingers like this. And the same way with singing, it's like, I hear it and it comes through my voice like that. There's plenty of times when I listen and I say, the band sounds just like it, but I don't sound at all like it. But we're always trying to do our best.
Yeah.
But it just comes out of my mouth that way. That's all.
Okay. That's all.
Well, of all the stuff you've done, and I like singing along with it, I could do the "Who Brought the Fire Down" part pretty well.
That's no mean feat, Dawn. That's good.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where I'm at. Otherwise, so Jerry Samandel asks, this would be a time to kind of promote concerts if you know where they are. Do you have any plans to be in Northern Illinois? Now they can get on your mailing list to find that stuff out, right?
They can go to our website, ApologetiX.com. That's apologetics with an X, not a CS. You can go there. We are currently not touring. We've not been touring for a number of years because of the fact that we've been focusing on doing as much music as possible. So if you're going to put out 4 CDs a year and 50, we put out 2 songs every 2 weeks. That enables us to be home with the family. But if you have a time machine, we have played in Northern Illinois plenty of times. We played in Illinois. We played in Green Bay and up in Wisconsin a bazillion times. So if you come across a time machine, you can go in that. If not, if we do start touring again, sure, we'd love to come back to Illinois and Wisconsin. Those were 2 of the first big national places for us aside from we did a little bit in the Northeast and stuff, but when we played a festival out in Rockford, Illinois, in '99, and we played with Petra. We were like low man on the totem pole out of the 8 bands, but God gave us immense favor with the people, and it just opened up the doors for us out there. So we love the Midwest. Pittsburgh, a lot of people think, okay, it's Pennsylvania, so they think of us as more like East Coast, but Pittsburgh's mentality is much more like the Midwest, whereas Philly is more like East Coast. We're on the other side of the state.
So your all of your songs are available for purchase online, and we have the link to that. If someone wanted to contribute, are you a 501c3 as well, or straight business?
We're straight business. We're nonprofit, but we do accept donations as long as people don't want a tax receipt. We make that pretty clear. And that's one thing. If you go to the website and you get singles and stuff, they're available for whatever donation you want. You set the price yourself, so you can get them as cheaply as you want. You can get our whole library and stuff. God always takes care of the bills. So it's like that zone in the end of Proverbs when don't let me get too rich that I'll be tempted to forget you, or too poor that I'll be tempted to steal. God keeps us nice in that zone, and that's where I want to be. Yeah,
that's true. So, all right, and Katie J says, "Cool, love the girls' voices too. New fave hit. Hit him with your slingshot. Hit him with your slingshot."
Yes, that's my daughter Jana saying that. It was a parody of "Hit Me with Your Best Shot." She sang that a number of years ago. It was so cool. Yeah. Guys, we've been doing this for 31 years. I got ideas like in the mid 90s where it's like they're for girls, but how am I ever going to sing these? And then God grew our roster for us. Now my daughters are 26 and 21, and my oldest 2, and they're singing on our music. And some of these songs were written before they were born or the year they were born.
Amazing.
How fun. Well, Jay, I have really enjoyed having you on.
Oh, yeah.
I've enjoyed being had. Thank you.
Yeah, and you have been had. You beat us to that one.
So, Ron, we're going to ask you to walk us out of here. Jay, when we're done, hang on for a second.
Sure.
Okay, let's give credit to whom credit is due. Our resident cult leader profiler is Neil before me. Our wardrobe manager is See How It Fits You. Culinary services are provided by Chef Ham and Cheese. Our tinfoil head provisioner is Just In Case. Jehovah's Witnesses coverage is covered by Armageddon and D. Opposer. Our Mormon Archives manager is Polly Gummas. Our Liberal Denominations Bureau Chief is Lucy Goosey. Our transgender issues coverage comes from Ben Hur. Special correspondent for cults based on the Hindenburg disaster and flying turkeys, O.D. Humanity. Our fact-checking supervisor is Jolie Pulling. Technical assistance comes through Mercury Research. Our legal advisors are at the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham & Howe. Grievance Resolution Director is Giovanna P. Sami. Director of Privacy Assurance is Wiretapping. And original idea sourcing comes from Drew A. Blank. The Unknown Webcast is a production of Midwest Christian Outreach, Inc. in cooperation with Emergency Manicure Productions, both of whom are solely responsible for this content, although you will never be able to prove that in a court of law.
Never happened.
Many have tried. No, nobody's tried, actually.
Nobody's tried.
In any case,
we don't want to.
they don't even try.
All right.
Okay.
Everybody out